This is the beginning of what I expect is going to be a few videos that I'm making about Michael Chekhov's work in relationship to a very important book of Jewish mysticism called the Kabbalah, called the Zohar. The Zohar is, just a few words about that maybe, is one of the main books in the what I would call the neo-platonic side of the Kabbalah tradition. Kabbalah being a way of talking about dialectical philosophy with Jewish labels. So there's the Aristotelian side and there's the Platonic side. So the Zohar is one of the main books in the Platonic tradition, neo-Platonism. And it just so happens that Michael Chekhov's work is a very close fit to that tradition. Now, where exactly Michael Chekhov got it from, I'm not an expert on the history of Michael Chekhov's life. I'm not an expert on the history of the Russian, the schools that, what was going on in Russia, in Stanislavski, well, that whole period, and I know that Chekhov was a very important student of Stanislavski. I know something about, he got something from Rudolf Steiner and from theosophy, but I'm not getting into that. I'm just basing my understanding of Chekhov on the 5-hour lecture series that fortunately is available now on the internet for anyone. And I transcribed that whole lecture series and made notes, and then I studied those notes very carefully and I made an outline for myself. It's right here. And that's going to be my basis for Michael Chekhov. And the Zohar, I have a very important summary of the Zohar. Now the Zohar is a huge work. The version that I have in Hebrew is 10 volumes long, and that's got all kinds of additions to it, the new Zohar and the corrections to the Zohar and all that stuff. The original is in Aramaic, and then there are all kinds of Hebrew translations around. I'm not getting into much of that either. What I'm doing is trying to boil each of these two sides down. Boil Michael Chekhov down to those 5 hours of the lectures, and I realize I'm leaving out a lot of things that way. Of course, I'm including the 41 exercises that also are on the internet. Somebody put them on there, so I'm including them also. And as far as the Zohar goes, I'm relying on this very important summary of the Zohar called The Universal Meaning of the Kabbalah by a very important person named Leo Schaya, Leo S-C-H-A-Y-A. This book you can buy in a lot of bookstores. I'm not going to start out right now with a big lecture about his book, but let's assume for the beginning that it's a nice summary of some key ideas of the major ideas of the Zohar, and I find it especially relevant because he's dealing with a lot of things that artists deal with and performers deal with. The way this thing is organized around the central character of what they call in the Kabbalah Metatron. Metatron, the highest angel of the Kabbalistic hierarchy. You might say it's kind of like a Jewish version of Jesus or something, but I don't want to get in trouble with that. I'm not preaching Jesus at all, but basically you can find exactly the same sort of thing in just about any major religion. That's why he calls it the universal meaning of the Kabbalah. He's not focusing so much on what's unique to Judaism as the basic elements that are the basic dialectical foundation of the ideas. And that's what I'm taking out of Schaya. I'm sure I've already made a lot of enemies, what I just said. That's okay. Let me just say this. If you are a serious student of Michael Chekhov, it might be that you need me more than I need you even, because from what I've seen, the two major organizations that are teaching and preaching Michael Chekhov these days, one goes by the heading of Misha, M-I-C-H-A, and the other one goes by the labels N-M-C-A, maybe it's National Michael Chekhov or something, Association or something like that. I've listened to some of their lectures, I've watched some of their demonstration classes, And believe me, what I'm going to be spewing forth here is neither of the above, but something which I feel is very important. I feel what I'm going to say is much closer to the basic understanding that I got out of listening to those 5 hours of lectures, because Michael Chekhov keeps stressing that the main thing is the psycho, not the physical. The body is a tool of the spirit, the psyche. I know I realize those are fuzzy words right now. We'll define them as we go along. And so I feel I'm much closer to what Michael Chekhov his basic basic program was anyway. But I'm sure that, of course, even if I am closer to the sources, it doesn't mean that I'm more useful. There must be a lot of performers that would have nothing to do with what I'm going to be talking about, that are getting an enormous amount from these other kind of approaches, which are mostly body work and all kinds of stuff. Some of these people are throwing in all kinds of allusions to current research in psychology, neuro this, and something about Maslow, and somebody. Oh, they kind of make a salad out of all contemporary psychologies available and all the contemporary acting techniques, and calling that Michael Chekhov. But again, I don't want to get into that. I think one of the main things that I am peddling here is a systematic underlying understanding of the philosophical, the theological ideas. I'm going to try and make it accessible so that you don't have to be Jewish even to understand it. Every word, I'll try to use each word in English, and if I use a Hebrew word, I'll give the English translation. So I hope that the fact that my focus here is on Jewish mysticism won't drive away people who might be interested otherwise. I hope you'll stick around long enough to see that if I can really be of use to you. And again, I'll say that if you're looking for an overall theoretical framework that I don't see as at all there in these other approaches, that's consistent, that fits in with the overall dialectical tradition of philosophy that this man is coming out of, which goes back to Plato and Aristotle, and I'm sure you could find the same, like Schaya points out, you could find the same thing in Hinduism or Sufism or just about any major religion in the world. You'll find similar ideas. So I'm not emphasizing the fact that this is just for Jews, please don't get me wrong, but I happen to be Jewish and very Zionistic. I live in Israel. So to me it's very important, and I'll tell you another thing here. There's an important book about Michael Chekhov that was printed that talks about his early life and about relationship to his father, but there's not one word in that book about his mother. Why? Because his mother was Jewish, and apparently this author has some kind of a reason that wants to make that book of his Juden rein, no Jews allowed in that book. And it's unfortunate. But I'm doing the opposite. I'm announcing right at the beginning here that, as a matter of fact, unless the information I read is incorrect, Michael Chekhov's mother was Jewish, which makes him Jewish whether he likes it or not, according to at least certain rabbis anyway, even though most of his life he had nothing to do with Judaism, and I don't find a word about Judaism in anything he said or wrote or whatever. But the fact is his mother was Jewish. So one thing I'm doing here is simply making Judaizing Michael Chekhov. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Whether he likes it or not, what he said, what he preaches, and the techniques he demonstrates fit precisely into the neo-platonic version of the Kabbalah that's very popular these days. You can read it in the Kabbalah Center of Michael Berg, all these performers, Madonna, chasing after that stuff. They have a translation of the Zohar right there that Berg made. And there's another cult, the ashlag cult, another version of Judaism based on the Zohar. You can find basically what I'm going to say in either of those traditions or any other tradition which is rooted in the Zohar. You can find it all over Nachman of Breslav, but when you look at Nachman of Breslav, who also is in the Platonic tradition, you're going to find it there much kind of like trying to look at a piece of trying to look at a tomato by looking at a tomato salad, where the tomatoes all over the place. Because Nachman of Breslav writes in a very free associational style, which, as a matter of fact, is exactly the way Michael Chekhov would like actors to work. What does he calls it? I keep being tempted to go off into a philosophical discussion, but I'm going to try and stay on the main track for a change here and not get lost. Okay, so that's my introduction, and my apologies, and if you're gone by now, so bye-bye. Now, I made a little list here of, this is only the beginning, the first tape, and this subject is so vast that I just gave up on the idea of presenting a systematic thing. Like this universal meaning of the Kabbalah is a very systematically organized treatment of the Kabbalah, if the Zohar. So if you want that kind of systematic approach, go right away to Schaya, and that'll give you. I would say Shaya's book is the textbook for my course here. Okay, and I'm going to give a kind of my lectures are going to be kind of focused on particular topics, whatever I happen to be able to assimilate this particular day. And today I happen to have a list here about 20 possible topics. And here I have a summary of Michael Chekhov's 5 hours of lectures. And somehow or other, I'm going to, like a Chinese restaurant, I'm going to take some from column A and some from column B and try to make some kind of a meal out of that. All right, so let's start. If I start now, let's say you're an actor and you don't know much about all this mumbo jumbo. And you want to know, well, wait a second, when's this guy going to get to start talking about acting? So right away, I'll do that right now. I'm going to take from my list here of topics the key terms that I am ready to deal with right now in my discussion here. For example, Michael Chekhov says, an actor needs to trust your talents. And every word that Michael Chekhov uses is jargon, which is totally used consistently. When he says talents on page 3, when he says talents on page 53, he's talking about the same idea of talents. Of course, he doesn't tell you what he means by talents because he's using a code for the underlying Kabbalistic or dialectical ideas. But when he says trust your talents, that's one of the things I'm going to be decoding. When he says the actor needs to think of himself as a sea. That's a key word, sea. In the Kabbalah, the word ocean is all over the place. And a sea of riches. And what does it mean by riches? And then he's talking about archetypes. And of course, archetypes is another word that's all over the Kabbalah. And the place where the sea of riches hangs out, the main place is what they call the level of Olam HaBriyah, the world of creation in the Kabbalah. And one of the 10 Sephirot, one of the key ideas that make up the tree of life, is called Tiferet, which means beauty. And that's another place where you find this idea of the sea with all the riches and all the archetypes. Another key word is sensations, and by sensations he's saying archetypes with a different emphasis there. Then you're going to hear a lot about the idea of a center. All the time, actually, you're supposed to think you have according to Chekhov, you're supposed to imagine you have a center here, And on one of these talks I heard on the internet this morning, some teacher there is saying, "Oh, your center is right here," but really, that's like a comic book version of an idea of a center. Please, let's go on. Then the mass. We're going to talk about what he means by a mass. We're going to talk about beauty. The word beauty, and there's another word for Tiferet, the world of pure ideas. These are jargon words, and he uses them totally consistently. Another thing, your eye consciousness, your higher self that shines through all of the mask, all of the veil of the character. That's right, that's exactly the same kind of stuff. That's again the world of pure ideas. Olam HaBriyah, Olam is world, Briyah is creation. The world of creation, the world of pure ideas. If you want to get it from from Philo, you can read Harry Wilson's book about Philo, and you'll find he calls it there, ideas in the mind of God. That's another way of thinking that, if you like Philo's version. What other terminology we got here? Oh, the theater as a fiction. The whole thing's a fiction. Yeah, in what sense does he mean by a fiction? Well, I'll get to that also. Where else here we got here? Transformation, another $1 million word. Radiation, love, friend, making friends with everything in the production, the chairs and the audience and all that stuff. Multi-level acting. these are the topics that I'm ready to deal with today. And I'll try to deal with them one after the other. But I'm telling you right now, and I'm telling me right now, that this is just the beginning, because there's a lot more, enormous amount more I can get out of reading this book for the 15th time. I've already read it at least 14 times over the past 20 years, I don't know. And I feel like I've got a better handle on Shaya's book. I want to say it's a beautiful introduction, but don't expect to understand it all the first time. It's a kind of book you just got to start reading and then find your way into it little by little. But it's a lot easier than getting into that than it is to get into, the Kabbalah, the original Zohar. Because this one is written in some kind of a coherent prose, whereas the original Kabbalah is written kind of like Nachman of Breslav's collected essays, Likutim Moharan, like a word salad, a string of associations. In fact, Nachman of Breslav says that. My Torah sheli lagamrei bechinot. My Torah is completely associations. And okay. All right, so those are the topics here. That's an outline. Second outline. Now, I guess I'm ready to start on item number 1. Okay? Another source that I'll be throwing in here, 2 other sources I'll be throwing in along the way, no extra charge. And if you look at my 300 videos that are already on Vimeo or on YouTube, just go to those places and type in Franklin Wepner. You'll find, especially on Vimeo, they're all there in an uncut version. On YouTube, a lot of it was taken out, a lot of it was slashed. But Vimeo.com, you'll find all my videos. And there, you'll find a whole bunch of stuff about Gestalt therapy, and you'll find a certain amount of stuff about Mabu Mines Theater Company. I know I spent a certain amount of time back in 1976 something, 77, learning from Mabu Mines, and right now I'm going to use one of their favorite terms here, even though it's not in Schaya, it's not in it's not in the Kabbalah here, and it's not in Chekhov, but when Chekhov says you need to trust your talents, your riches, Mabu Mines would say the same thing, that the actor is tripping. You're tripping on your material. You collect a whole bunch of stuff, and when Chekhov talks about collecting, he says it's inhaling and exhaling. And when you inhale, you're accumulating all kinds of experiences, for example, by looking at people and reading the play and looking at the room you're in and your fantasies. It's all accumulating sensations, sensory and experiences and ideas. And then exhaling is when you express all that. So the expressing part is the tripping part, where you just kind of let it come out and trust that what comes out is going to work somehow. And that means what you're doing in order to do that properly, if we want to talk about it now in terms of Kabbalah, the jargon, we want to go up from the lowest level of the world. There are 4 worlds. There's the world of asiya, doing, the word of yitzirah, the soul. The 3rd one is the one we just talked about, creation. And the 4th word is atzilut, the emanations. So you want to leap up from your everyday world, which is the lowest one I just mentioned, doing. And you want to trust that your sources are coming from the level of pure ideas. Just a footnote here, the 2 higher worlds are the level of uncreated ideas. The 2 lower levels are created ideas. So you want to trust that something that's not created yet, but is on the verge of being created, will be your lead. That you're going to trust that is your lead, that's your source. And if you're a person that's used to very much locked into the matrix of everyday life, and you are under pressure to perform as an actor or something, that's going to be very difficult to do and threatening, because you're worried, what if I don't get it right, And the whole point about trusting in the world of pure ideas, or in other words, trusting in God if you want to get religious, but I don't want to get that much religious, is that you have to take a risk. You have to have faith that somehow or other your ocean of riches and archetypes and sensations and all the stuff you've accumulated is going to somehow come together, be synthesized. And again, the level of synthesis is the level of this world of pure ideas. So the main focus of this technique so far is beginning to emerge is that the world of pure ideas, the world of Bria, creation, in the Kabbalah, is the main reference point for the Michael Chekhov acting technique. You need to trust that, what do they say in, trust, expect the unexpected, that kind of, all that kind of mystical mumbo jumbo. And here it is part of a system of the Kabbalah. Okay, so we have the idea of tripping. You collect this material, you have a certain idea of the body of the character, you have all kinds, you have the words you got to deal with, you got to deal with the director's comment, directions, you got to deal with the audience that's right out there in front of your nose. All of these elements somehow or other come together in the now, the mystical here and now, the messianic now, and somehow by trusting in that higher source of ideas, it's supposed to somehow flow forth. All right? In fact, that makes me, now that I'm saying that, I'm going to jump over to number 14 on my list. I'll skip the others for now, come back to that. I just got to one of the last chapters in the book here, that I'm now reading again and again. And there I find an amazing way of talking about what I just said. But here I'm going to say it differently, and I'm going to use two key Hebrew words to point this out. And don't worry if you don't get all this the first time. But I'll be like a broken record. I'll be over and over it again. And if I keep going on my project here with these Michael Chekhov videos. Okay, so here's the in this chapter on what he calls the mystery of man, how man is somehow the summary of the entire Zohar, the entire Kabbalah, and the whole embodies the whole God's image in the world, you know, the encompassing idea of what a person is. In this process of a person coming back to God after having, you know, fallen in everyday life and everything, and there's two key words that they use, kind of on a wholesale level when you talk about the whole Jewish people. One word is the Shemitah, and the root there is shamat, which means to loosen up, to release, to break away. You know that song by Kelly Clarkson, Breakaway? Okay, she's breaking away from something. She's releasing herself from some past, but it doesn't say where she's going to, you know. At least not specifically. She has a vague idea about, I want to break away and there's something out there for me. But the other half of it is the new idea that you find, you know, when you do break away, and that's the other word, which is yovel. Yovel. The root there in Hebrew is yaval, which means to come forth, to flow, to break through. So here we have two ideas which are linked. In the tradition, the idea is that every 7 years there's supposed to be a year of Shemitah, where you break away from all the customs and everything of the seven years. For example, all the slaves are supposed to go free after 7 years, things like that. And every 50 years you have a 7 times 7 plus 1, somehow they throw in an extra 1 there. You get this jubilee when somehow the Messiah or some big mystical thing's supposed to happen, okay? And there, the root of the word, yaval, is to come forth, to break through. So something breaks through, but in order for something to break through, has to be 7 times already that the person broke out of something. So you break out of your habits, and each time you still didn't get to the big breakthrough, the major thing that's going to break forth. And then the 7th time around, boing, you get the big one, the yovel, the jubilee. Okay. Now, what does it have to do with the acting? Take the simplest Michael Chekhov exercise. You're supposed to just look out here and radiate a ray. I'm pretending I'm a god or something like this, an actor, and I'm radiating out a ray right now in that direction, towards that wall over there or that window. I'm radiating out a ray. In terms of Gestalt therapy, it's awareness, a moment of awareness. I'm radiating out in that direction, but I'm not saying what I'm contacting there, but I'm just radiating out. Okay, the moment I do my radiating, I'm breaking out of the matrix. I cancel out the whole idea of this is a room with a bed, with a camera, with a window, with a this, with a that, and instead of that, I am like God, creating a new world. I radiate from a center, I radiate something out. So I've broken away. I did a moment of the Shemitah. I just did what you're supposed to do every 7 years. I did it in 1 second here. I can do it another ray over there, another ray over there. In other words, I can fill up this whole room with a gazillion rays, and then I can go play some other corner of the room and make another gazillion rays, and the whole room is full of all this one big shmita, one big breaking out of everyday reality. So this is beginning to get used to the idea of my higher self. This is the world of what you call inductive logic rather than deductive logic, awareness rather than thinking. And just like for Gestalt therapy, for Michael Chekhov, thinking is the bad guy and awareness is the good guy. We need to watch out for our sneaky rational minds and keep focused on our awareness, here and now awareness. Okay, so what's the other word? Jubilee. If you think of the same actor now, it's 2 months later and the show is just opening at the moment, the audience is out there, the performance is about to begin, and this actor has now, I am the actor, I made friends with all the props and all the actors here, and love is pervading the whole production, and all of these elements are coming together into this big moment where this kind of messianic experience is supposed to flood the whole theater and transport everybody up to Neverland, the land of love. That's about as far as Michael Chekhov goes in telling you what, mystical terms, what he's talking about. But so in that process, somehow in one sense, we just took this idea of radiating and projecting and identifying with all the things we project out there, and just made it into, it's like integral calculus, starting with one and integrated it up to a gazillion, just to point at the infinity there. But in another sense, there's even another element, a mystical element here, that in a sense, all the elements of this production are in opposition to each other. And that's one thing, that element of any dialectical thinking, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And Chekhov's always talking about relieving monotony. An actor should be developing all kinds of polarities, contrasts, and if that's not dialectical, Kabbalistic mumbo jumbo, nothing is. And so if you have this, if you've done prepared your production properly and directed properly, and everything is in opposition to everything else, and the whole thing kind of explodes into one moment of integration somewhere around the middle of the fifth act or something like that, then that's the moment of breakthrough. That's the jubilee. So the whole process from when the moment the actor walks into that studio and starts radiating out a ray, till the final moment when all those opposites converge into one glorious negation of negations. Every particular opposition is a negation of the oneness, and then comes the glorious moment when it all comes together in front of the audience, and it's the negation of all of those negations, and we get to the final moment of the one and the many, the identity and difference, God and the world and God. So that's the whole dialectical process, a Kabbalistic process here unfolding. But I'm giving it to you in the context of dialectical thinking, Kabbalistic ideas, rather than just spraying it out to you with a bunch of wishy-washy metaphors about love and about Maslow's this and neuropsychic that and all that stuff. I'm giving you a system. Now, if you don't want a system like this, then you go back to the other places and listen to all that hodge-podge salad jargon. But if you want a system, then you might, you'll see more and more how what I'm saying now is going to tie in exactly to what I'm going to say three hours later, because it's all the same dialectical structure and the same Kabbalistic framework that I'm giving you. Okay? All right, so let's see, I covered one. What did I miss here? All right. Let's go back to this number 2. So we did. So the next major idea is the C. Now, what is the C when Michael Chekhov's telling the actor? When the director says, "Do it this way," you're supposed to tell the director, "Oh yes, director, I am such a rich performer. I have so many options. I could do it exactly the way you like." And then you do it that way, and the director tells you, "No, I didn't like that. Do it the other way." And then you're supposed to tell the director, according to these 5 hours of lectures that I just have been studying here, You're supposed to tell the director, oh, but Mr. Director, I am so rich, I can do it that way. I have that in me also. I have all these riches. In other words, I am an ocean of riches, an ocean of archetypes. There's keyword archetypes, and what does he mean by archetypes? All right, so all right, so if I now turn to the same idea in a Kabbalistic context here, if we open to the idea of one of the key words in the Kabbalah is Tiferet. This is the the Kabbalah can be seen in a lot of different ways. It's usually think of it as either concentric circles with a point in the middle, or you can think of it as three columns and impulses going up. Once up the right side and down the left side. As if your left side would be over there, your right side over there. Okay. Or you could think of it, another way to think of it is a circle with something in the middle, and that spot in the middle is called Tiferet. Why is it in the middle? Because the idea is that all the opposites on any diameter you make on that circle, there are two opposite things on the circumference, and somehow in this point they come together in the center, they interpenetrate. But they don't just come together and you don't get a compromise. This is dialectical thinking with all kinds of opposites, remember. So we have the mystical phrase, fusion without confusion. Fusion without qualitative confusion. Why? Because each of these opposites is a different quality. For example, this one might be courage, and this one might be cowardice, and this might be hot-blooded, and this might be cold turkey, or cold fish, or something like that. Whatever it is, they're opposites, and somehow or other they come together. All the gazillion opposites that make up your character, or your life, or your production, whatever, come together theoretically, conceptually, in this key pure idea, Platonic idea of Tiferet. And the word Tiferet has another translation, which is beauty. Beauty. And there's another way in which, in one of the Chekhov exercises, he tells people to go around, look at the world, look at architecture, look at all kinds of beautiful objects, and ask yourself what makes it beautiful. And he doesn't say it, but at least in the version I have, but what he's driving at here is the same idea of the one in the many. The place where all these opposites somehow come together and nicely balanced in opposition to each other and integrated in a beautiful structure like that. Okay? So now, next thing is, what is it that are coming together? What are these opposites we're talking about here? How am I going to present that idea? Well, a word that he uses is archetypes. Arc, major you might say, type, a major type. Another word he uses is sensations, a sensation. And he uses the word sensation and the word archetype at the same time. Basically, one back and forth, one and the other. So somehow they must be the same thing. And in case you haven't figured that one out, let me tell you how they're the same thing. The word sensation can be taken as a physical experience of a sense, and it can be taken as an idea, to make sense of something. So the word sensation is a lovely dialectical word which has all kinds of implications and opposite meanings thrown in there. And it fits right in with the word of archetype. Because an archetype, but somehow an archetype, we think of, courage as an archetype. A sensation could be an archetype also. On the other hand, each of these things can be a place where a lot of other things come together. So then, in that sense, the way I recommend to make sense of it is to flip over here now to Gestalt therapy. What is a Gestalt? When I'm aware of something, I see right out there I see a corner that I see something where two lines come together somehow, slightly different shades. I'm not going to say what it is, because if I say what it is, I'm losing the idea of awareness, and I'm flipping over to the idea of some kind of a matrix of ideas. I'm flipping over from inductive thinking to deductive logic. But here, if I stay with it, it's some kind of intersection of two lines somehow or other, and I'll call it some kind of a corner. And I notice this kind of a lighter shade here and a darker shade here. That's my awareness. Now, well, what is it? It's a corner of a crate. With, two crates piled high with a clock in the middle. So I'm looking at the corner there, and I'm saying that's what it is. Okay, that's a Gestalt. Gestalt is a German word that means pattern. It's a pattern. Or another way of saying it's a figure that emerges from the ground of possible things. Another way of saying it is a ray I project out. The Kabbalists would say the one that projects here, they have a special word for that. Metatron, and that's a key word. The actor, when I project something out, I am Metatron. The master angel that somehow encompasses the two levels, the macrocosmic ideas, pure ideas, and the lower level microcosmic ideas. That big angel that the actor represents projects the ray. So Metatron is projecting here an image, a ray, and what that ray encounters a certain sensory item out there, which is called in the Kabbalah avir in Hebrew and ether in English. Some kind of a receiver of that I'm sending a ray out, and there's some kind of a surface that somehow or other gives it back. If you want to go deeper in the Kabbalah, we have the idea of chokhmah, the idea, and bina. Chokhmah is the projector of the idea, receives the idea from Keter, the highest level of the Sephirot, and sends it down to the bina, where that idea is received and factored like a prism into all kinds of the next level down, but it's also reflected back into the one that radiated out the ray as a mirror. So that same bina becomes now a mirror and a prism at the same time, and the sparks, the rays keeps radiating out into the universe and all the world and the whole theater. Okay, so when I just did that, where was I? Got lost here. I wanted to talk about what is an archetype, what is a quality or sensation. So that Gestalt, that moment of living reality there, is another way of, probably the basic way of looking at what is a radiation, what is a sensation, what is an archetype. Why? Because, and what is a center? If I now went over there, or in my imagination even, identify with that corner of the two, where the two lines on that crate come together, that corner, and say, I am this corner. And I go out this way, and I go out that way, and this side of me has this kind of a gray color, and this side of me has a much darker color. And right away, then I ask myself, can I identify with that? What I just said. Here I am, Franklin, and I have this, I go out in that corner, and I go out in that direction. This side is darker, and this side is lighter. Well, right away, as an actor, I can start getting ideas from that, receiving impressions. So from that center that I projected out there, I made that my new center. Now radiate this mystical center of consciousness, my I consciousness, my higher self, is now projected onto that corner there. In fact, there's an interesting idea from the Kabbalah, from the Bible. You ever read the thing about the stone that the foundation stone that the builders have rejected has now become the stone that the builders rejected has now become the foundation of the world somehow or other. That idea, the idea that God, I think, takes a stone from his throne and throws it down, and one end gets stuck in the world, the other end is still stuck to the throne, and somehow or other these two. That stone becomes the Rosh Pinah, the head corner of the world. I just did it. I took a corner. I didn't plan it, and I just realized that I made a Rosh Pinah. I was illustrating the concept of irradiation, which is also the concept of the foundation stone here, as though I'm God throwing a stone down into the world, and I threw it onto that corner there. And now that corner has become the foundation of a new world. And I could do the same thing infinitely. I could project 1,000,000 centers in this room. Okay? So the idea that my center is here is simply dumb. I mean, please. The center is wherever your I consciousness is. And no matter where you radiate it out to, the moment you identify with that other place, then you have another center. Another center. You know, the Chekhov's always talking about, imagine an arrogant person, you know, his center could be in his raised eyebrow here, you know. Oh, here I am, the great intellectual, and all you dummies out there are learning everything from me, and that's the way it is. And my center is radiating out from here. Okay? Now if I play one of the dummies out there, okay, gee, Mr. Wepner, oh, thank you so much. Thank you for all this wisdom. You know, then it became another center, a center of a dummy, you know, or a certain person that's willing to accept the role of dummy in relationship to some other person. We got a person that's willing to, as they say in Gestalt therapy, a person that's willing to accept the role of a piece of shit in order to some kind of, so he can play opposite some kind of another person who's taking upon himself the role of the pompous ass, and you have the game between the pompous ass and the piece of shit, you know. Okay, so this playing around with centers is infinite, and to say that your center is here, please. All right. True. Chekhov says, if you have a person that has no kinks at all, no hang-ups at all, there's a perfectly, what they call in Judaism, a tzaddik, a wise, righteous man, you know, a perfect paragon of virtue. His center, very well, you know, in some sense, is right here. Okay? But, of course, the one that I heard teaching about the center being right here didn't mention any of that stuff. Just assume that everybody's got a center right here. But that's not true. This person's center could be wherever and whenever you want it to be. All right. So the idea of all these centers with different contrasting qualities, somehow or other radiating out from some center of the world, is this idea of Tiferet, a place where all of these centers converge, with their opposites and in proper balance and polarities and contrast and everything, with all different colors, somehow or other. Then that's the idea of beauty, and that's the idea of the one in the many, God in the world again. We come back to the basic idea of dialectical thinking here, identity and difference, if you like Hegel's terminology. All right, so we covered now, and the C is all of these archetypes. So the word archetype, think of archangels. You know, according to the Maimonides' idea of Judaism, an angel is a force that does the work of God in the world, and an archangel is one that takes a whole bunch of angels and kind of is their supervisor. So this guy does a lot of work. He has all the angels working for him. And that ties right in with the idea in Gestalt therapy of some weak gestalts and strong gestalts. Or if you're into Leibniz philosophy, a weak monad and a strong monad. More and more encompassing ideas that encompass the other, building up. So an archetype, since it has the word arc in it, it's going to be a collection of lower level experiences, sensations. And an archetype is going to be a big enough collection that you could begin to say that it has, even though everything is fuzzy there, you can begin to say that it has some kind of an overall quality. Which now, I'm gyrating around here, but okay, now I thought of that exercise, you know, gestures and qualities. Chekhov tells you, okay, take a gesture, for example. I'm swimming here, okay? I'm swimming. That's my gesture. And now try that exercise with a few different qualities. I'm swimming in a panicky mood. I'm swimming in a lovely, idyllic mood. I'm swimming in a scared mood. There might be sharks out there. All kinds of qualities. And the moment I put the quality into the gesture, I put the individuality into the type, I've created again this magical balance between the oneness and the manyness. The one is in this case, could we think of it as this, here's this one gesture. It means something in the matrix of everyday ideas. Swimming instead of eating. You know, I'm swimming, that's eating, that's swimming. They're opposites, they fit into a grid of ideas. But the moment I start using qualities, different ways of swimming, here and now, and that changes according to circumstances and in the scene and everything, then I right away get into the whole again, this whole huge idea of the one and the many, identity and difference, individuality rather than getting stuck in stereotypes. So all of these ideas are related. So any one of these examples I just mentioned could be an example of the sea of rich possibilities, of Tiferet, the beautiful balance between all the elements together. All right? Another thing that, where we see that idea in Chekhov, he says sometimes you're working on a quality. This is a section where he's talking about a shortcut. You know, you have a quality, pick a quality, or an archetype in other words, or a gestalt, or some kind of emotional cluster there, and pattern or something, organic reality, and chop up your script into, and for each scene you pick a quality. So let's say one quality, scene, a particular section, the quality is supposed to be fear. And Chekhov points out that while you're working on fear, you might, because you're so rich as an ocean of riches here, and so many archetypes and sensations, that fear might evolve into something else. You might finally discover that it turns into courage, a different quality. And he said, that's no problem, because every part of my system is related to every other part of my system. They're all related. You start one exercise, don't worry about which one you start on. You'll end up finding your way into all of them. Again, this idea of the ocean to ferret, everything is interlocked, fusion without qualitative confusion. Everything, each exercise, each moment keeps its individuality, but somehow or other they come together in the here and now mystical moment, the messianic now, as this experience of tiferet. Another way they talk about the heart of the actor, the heart of the production, the heart of. In fact, there's a story about Nachman and Breslav here. You know, the heart of the world and the spring. There's a mountain of the spring. The water's coming down, and the heart of the world is longing to get to the spring. That's a whole another lecture. But there it is, the heart of the world. So the actor, in a sense, depending on what your point of view, what you're dealing with, you could play the role of the spring, or you could play the role of the heart of the world, where everything is coming through you. We're emphasizing that right now. Okay, so what's next? I already covered number 3. Let's see. All right, now how about a little Kabbalistic mumbo-jumbo here? We've talked a lot about two major levels. There's a level of the pure ideas, your starting point. I radiate out from here, and I radiate out from there. And then there's the level of once I radiate something out, and for example, Chekhov tells you, read the play. Don't have to read it very well. Just quickly read the play quickly and get some idea of a character. Just make it up and use your imagination. So if I take right now the play of Uncle Remus, and I think Guitar Baby there, and I want to be Brer Rabbit. You know, that's my character. Believe me, I'm making this up right now. Now, how would I imagine Brer Rabbit? I would imagine he kind of like stopping in his suddenly. I see this image on the wall. He's shocked that this Tar Baby doesn't answer him when he says, "How are you doing, Tar Baby?" So now the moment I did that, I radiated out. I'm Chochmah radiating a Bina. I'm Adam radiating an Eve. I'm creating a world here. And then if I go over and play my image of a Brer Rabbit here, shocked, you know, and, oh, what's going on? But I'm shocked. So we already have two levels. In a simple transaction, what I just did. There's first of all the moment when I had my idea about the situation with Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby. So that was kind of like the world of pure ideas. I don't know where it came from, but somehow that idea came out of the blue. The blue, in other words, the world of pure ideas. The world of the third level up, take the elevator. Remember, Chekhov's always telling us an actor needs to be free to move up and down these different levels. Multi-level action, multi-level acting. You don't want to be just stuck on this level, you're in the lowest level, your everyday self. You want to be able to move up and down to your higher self and all the different opposites along the way. So you want to be able to move from your lowest level, which is the pure physical level, and next level up, all the opposites. That's the level of soul. Next level up, and that's created stuff. Next level up is the pure ideas, which is the uncreated. And on the finest level is, you might say, God or something, which there's not much talk about that. And I don't want to get into that, just like Chekhov doesn't want to get into that, because most of the talk in this Kabbalistic mumbo-jumbo is about the lower three levels. So let's just leave God in peace up there. May he rest in peace. And let's go back to our work. Okay, so we have labels for each of these levels. And that's what I get to here. So the moment I start playing that uptight rabbit, now that pure idea that started out with just a ray at the beginning has become a physical experience. And Chekhov is going to tell you, and this is where all the acting people that are making a lot of money on Chekhov these days, they run it like a dance class, and they teach people to be able to very quickly transfer an idea or a feeling into a movement. Okay, that's part of the work, but it's not the main thing. So we have a way of conceptualizing that. All right, just to introduce some jargon here. The lowest level world, the lowest level, the world of doing, has another name, has the label called Malchut, kingdom. Or they call it the lower mother. The lower mother, just like the upper level, Chokhmah Bina, remember Bina was the one that receives the ray from Chokhmah, from God, you might say, or from Metatron. And on the one hand, feeds it back as a mirror. On the other hand, as a prism, refracts it into all the other stuff that follows from that. So here we have the lower level serving the same function. Because here it is, that same idea that started out as a vague idea in my mind about Uncle Remus' story. Now I am the rabbit, and I'm looking at Tar Baby. And so I am, at this moment, if I'm looking at Tar Baby, I am another level of radiating. I'm radiating out Tar Baby, and if I'm Tar Baby, I'm radiating out Brer Rabbit. And so we have the same process going on, parallel, corresponding way. So the lower level is called the level of Malchut, kingdom. And the higher level, so the world of Asiya, doing, and that's where the body's involved, and that's where the voice is involved, and all that stuff. And the higher level is the world of pure ideas. And somehow or other, they're in relationship of correspondence. So a lot of the Chekhov stuff is about doing something physically and then letting that somehow or other radiate up and then gives you some kind of a mystical oneness idea that then gives you a whole bunch of another shower of new ideas. And then the new ideas, it's endless, the resonance, reverberations between the lower levels and the higher levels. Now, on the way between level number 1, the world of doing, and level number 3, the world of pure ideas, you pass through the level of soul. What does soul mean? That's the level of opposites. Opposites. So, it's not enough for me to just be Brer Rabbit here. I've got to have all my archetypes set up in oppositions, you know, so I know exactly when am I going to be a loud voice, when's a soft voice, when's the anger, when's the love, when's this, when's that. They're all opposites somehow or other. Same thing with Tar Baby. I project an image on a personality on the Tar Baby, and I got to build up his psychology, his soul, and so this process of going back and forth, up and down from worldly ideas and experiences to pure ideas, goes through this level of the second level, and that's called the world of Yetzirah in Hebrew, Yetzirah, to create, yeah, Litzor, to create, creating things. So we started out with pure ideas, uncreated ideas, and they start being created and breaking up into things you can really play and work with in the level of the soul level, and then finally, when you embody it, when you actually play the character, okay, so for example, when I was Rabbit here, projecting out Tar Baby out there, so I'm setting up that opposition. That's on a level of soul. But when I start playing it with my body, then I gotta... So most of the stuff that's going on in the Michael Chekhov studios that I've seen is happening on a level of Malchut, the level of the lowest level, where the body is becoming very good at expressing the ideas. That's fine. But it's not the main thing. It's very important to do that, but it's not the main thing. Okay, what's next? So again, the part of it, the center here, that the actor, the escalator here that you're riding up and down on, when you shift from one level of pure ideas to the level of malchut, to the level of yetzirah, making up new opposites, that escalator, the actor that encompasses the whole, the part of yourself, your spirit that encompasses everything, is called Metatron, the master angel. All right? And that if you're a Jesus freak, then that's your Jesus thing, you know? And if you're a Buddha freak, that's your Buddha. And if you're I don't know what the thing would be in Hinduism, but whatever it is, that central angel, maybe Plato would call it the demiurge, I'm not sure. That central angel that encompasses, integrates all things. And man is a symbol of God in that sense, and Metatron is a symbol of man. Metatron is a very important word in the Kabbalah, and the actor is basically taking on this function of being the central pillar, this Metatron figure. Okay? Now, if it's a little fuzzy now, don't worry about it, because we keep this stuff is endless, and everything repeats everything else. It's just looking at it from a different point of view. I see that I'm almost at the end of my. I'll check my tape. Okay, I took a look at the tape there. I see about 4 minutes. I think one thing I can cover in a short time is this idea. One way to think of the whole Kabbalistic symbol world is here of ideas is I told you a big circle with Tifereth in the middle and everything like a roundhouse and a train, train station. And I mentioned the other way is with concentric circles. Now, it's interesting to think about for a moment what's in the center and what's on the outer circle. The Michael Chekhov system, as the way I understand it, is based on the idea that the actor starts off in the center, the smallest circle, and he is representing Keter, which is the highest element. So the actor, at that moment, when I project the ray out, I am what we're doing in the Kabbalah, they call it tzimtzum, contraction. God is somehow contracting all his energy into this moment of my concentration, my center here, and I am becoming God radiating out a world. Only God can create something from nothing, and that's what I'm doing. I'm creating something from nothing, and I'm God at that moment. And what am I projecting? Then, every time I project another ray, little by little, I build up a whole world of my character, my mask, that veil that I'm going to, cover my spiritual center with, and that becomes the character. The mask, the veil, is like this garment that this super center here, which is God's, which is the again Metatron, God in the world, the immanence, the divine immanence. They call it in Hebrew the Shekhinah, the dwelling of God in the world. I become that. Now, just before I get to the end of this tape, the idea is, in Gestalt therapy, the process is complementary, and opposite. Why? I mean, you could think of these things in so many different ways, but try this for a second. When I say I am aware of this, and now I'm aware of that, and now I'm aware of that, I'm not assuming that I am God with the power to radiate out a whole world. I am assuming that I am some kind of a microscopic amoeba that is just beginning to be aware that there's a piece of paramecium or something over there. I want to start enveloping that piece of paramecium there. I'm starting on the very smallest level with no pretensions about being God. But if I stay with my process of working on my awareness and my dream and my personal relationships and everything else for 3 hours, then somehow I get to this big idea, the Word of God, the encompassing idea which included a gazillion awarenesses that I encountered in 3 hours of work. Okay? So there I'm starting in Malchut, this kingdom, on this world. And I'm reaching out to try to get to the end of the session where I'm playing God, and God is on the outside, not on the inside. You see what I mean? In one case I started from Keter, the highest level, Chokhmah, radiating out a ray. And the other, I started from the lowest level, Malchut, and right away I start projecting out a little bit of Yetzirah, all these opposites, and then I somehow get to one pure idea, another pure idea, through the process of getting into the opposites, and then you know, going inside what they call the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. And little by little, I explode this world out until I get to this huge idea at the end, and the director asked me at the end of the session, well, what did you learn today? And then I'm able to say, I learned, I realized such and such about my life, and I realized such and such. These big ideas came out of out of starting with a million little things on a micro level there. So you see the same way of thinking in concentric circles. You can use this mind trip in all kinds of ways once you get to be like me and get pretty clever at it. And here I just gave you 3 examples, okay? Tiferet, you know, starting in the center. Keters, if you put Tiferet in the center, you get fusion without confusion of all the opposites, the qualities, a rich character. If you start with Keter in the middle, you're doing Michael Chekhov work, you're radiating out a world. And if you start with Malchut in the center, our everyday world in the center, you're trying to break out of your social and your games and everything like that one at a time, then that's Gestalt therapy. So there are 3, right away we have 3 different ways of using that Kabbalistic mumbo jumbo, the circles, to open up 3 very different ways of working. And they're all related, of course. We'll see that the Gestalt therapy is simply another way of talking about Kabbalah from a different point of view, and Chekhov is using Gestalt therapy all over the place. I'll get to that. So I'll stop this tape here, and then maybe I'll just continue with another tape. I'm not sure yet. Okay, that's tape number 1. So thank you.